The cathedral doors burst open with such force that the ancient stained glass rattled in its leaded frames, and Delilah Foster's heart seized in her chest as a figure cloaked in shadow stepped into the aisle, silencing 300 wedding guests in an instant. She stood frozen at the altar in her white gown, her hand trembling in the grip of Marcus Whitley, the man she was being forced to marry to break her family's curse, the man she didn't love, the man whose touches made her skin crawl with wrongness even as she'd resigned herself to this fate. Her mother had explained it so many times it had become a mantra. Marry before your 23rd birthday or die, as every Foster woman had for 6 generations. Delilah had turned 22 last month. Time was running out and Marcus had been the only option, arriving in her life with convenient timing and a proposal that felt more like a business transaction than a romance. But now someone had interrupted, and as the figure moved forward through the shocked silence, Delilah's breath caught for an entirely different reason. He was the most beautiful and terrifying thing she had ever seen. Tall and impossibly graceful, he moved like liquid darkness given form, his long white hair falling past his shoulders in a silver cascade that caught the light filtering through the stained glass. His skin was pale as moonlight, luminous and perfect, and his eyes God. His eyes were the deep crimson of fresh blood, ancient and burning with an intensity that made her knees weak. He wore black-fitted clothing that seemed both timeless and modern, a long coat that swept behind him like wings, and every step he took radiated absolute authority. "This ceremony will not continue," he said, and his voice was like velvet wrapped around steel, cultured and commanding, with an accent that spoke of centuries rather than decades. The priest stammered, clutching his book. Marcus's hand tightened painfully on Delilah's. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded, his voice cracking slightly with fear that betrayed his bravado. The stranger's crimson gaze swept the room with obvious disdain before settling on Delilah, and the moment their eyes met, she felt something inside her chest pull tight, as if a string she hadn't known existed suddenly drew taut between them. Recognition flooded through her, though she had never seen this man before in her life. Impossible recognition. Inevitable recognition. "I am Valerius Drăculești," he said, each syllable precise and weighted with power. "King of the vampire court of the Eastern realms, lord of the eternal night, and sovereign over all vampire kind in this territory." His eyes never left Delilah's face. "And I am here to claim what is mine." The chapel erupted in chaos. Screams echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Guests scrambled from their pews, some fleeing toward the doors while others stood paralyzed with terror. Delilah's mother fainted into her father's arms. Marcus yanked Delilah behind him, though she could feel him shaking. "You can't just, this is insane, vampires aren't." Marcus was babbling, his face pale with terror. "She belongs with me," Valerius said, cutting through the noise with 4 words that somehow silenced the entire room more effectively than his entrance had. Delilah's heart hammered against her ribs. She should have been terrified. She should have been screaming like everyone else. Instead, that strange pull in her chest intensified, and she found herself stepping out from behind Marcus, drawn forward by something she couldn't name. "Delilah, what are you doing?" Marcus hissed, grabbing for her arm. She pulled away from him, barely aware of the movement, her entire focus on the vampire king who watched her with an expression of such fierce possession it should have frightened her. It didn't. Instead, she felt something in her settle, as if she'd been holding her breath for 22 years and could finally exhale. "You know nothing of this woman," Marcus said, finding his courage or his foolishness. "She's cursed. She has to marry by her 23rd birthday or she'll die. We're saving her life." Valerius's expression shifted into something cold and cruel, his perfect features arranging themselves into a mask of ancient contempt. "You know nothing of curses, mortal boy. You know nothing of death, and you certainly know nothing of her." He moved forward with that impossible fluid grace, and Marcus stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. "But I do." "How could you possibly?" Delilah started, her voice hoarse with confusion and something that felt dangerously like hope. "Because I am the one who cursed your bloodline," Valerius said, and the world tilted beneath Delilah's feet. For a moment she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The man, the vampire, standing before her with those burning crimson eyes and that possessive stare, was the reason she spent her entire life living under the shadow of death. The reason her grandmother had died at 22, and her great-grandmother before that, and every foster woman stretching back 6 generations. "You," she whispered, and fury ignited in her chest like a wildfire. "You did this to my family?" Yes, no apology, no explanation, just that single word delivered with absolute certainty. She should have hated him. She should have wanted him dead. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Why?" Valerius's eyes softened imperceptibly, though his expression remained commanding. "Because 6 generations ago, a woman named Delilah Foster saved my life when I was wounded and hunted by the Vampire Council for a crime I did not commit. She hid me, nursed me back to health, and when they came for me, she died protecting my location. She was meant to be my queen." my eternal companion. And I lost her before I could turn her, before I could make her immortal, before I could give her the eternity we were meant to share. The chapel had gone silent again, everyone transfixed by the vampire king's words. In my grief and rage, I cursed her bloodline. Valerius continued, his gaze never leaving Delilah's face. Every generation would bear one daughter who carried her face, her spirit, her soul, and each would die at 22 as she had died, until the cycle brought her back to me perfectly. Until her soul returned fully formed in a descendant who was not merely similar but identical in every way that mattered. He moved closer, and Delilah couldn't move, couldn't breathe, until you— "That's insane," Delilah said, but her voice lacked conviction, because looking at him, feeling this inexplicable pull, remembering the dreams she'd had since childhood of crimson eyes and silver hair and a love so vast it consumed everything, it didn't feel insane. It felt like truth. "Your mother found a loophole in the curse," Valerius said, his tone sharp with anger as he glanced at Marcus with unconcealed disgust. "She discovered that marriage would break it, would sever the connection between us before it could fully form. But she didn't understand that the curse was never meant to harm you. It was meant to preserve you, to ensure that when you came back to me, you would remember, you would know, you would feel the bond that was stolen from us." "So the marriage would kill her?" Marcus asked, finding his voice again. "Not kill her. Trap her in a half-life, severing her connection to her true nature, to the immortality that waits for her to me." Valerius's hands clenched at his sides. She would live an ordinary mortal existence and die an ordinary mortal death, and her soul would be lost to me forever. The cycle would end, incomplete and unfulfilled. Delilah's mind reeled. Everything she'd been told, everything she'd believed about the curse, had been built on partial truths and misunderstandings. Her mother thought she was saving her. Instead, she'd been condemning her to exactly the fate Valerius described as shadow life, empty of the connection currently thrumming through every nerve in her body. "I don't remember you," she said, though even as she spoke, fragments flickered in her mind. Dreams, impressions, the constant feeling that she was waiting for something, someone. "You will," Valerius promised. "Your soul remembers even if your mind doesn't yet. Give me time and I will help you remember everything." "This is crazy," Marcus interjected, his face flushed with anger now instead of fear. "You can't just show up and claim someone like property. Delilah, tell him you're marrying me." Delilah looked at Marcus, really looked at him. She'd agreed to marry him out of desperation and duty, not love. She barely knew him. He'd appeared in her life 8 months ago, charming and persistent, and when her mother explained that marriage was the only way to break the curse, Delilah had accepted his proposal because what choice did she have? Death or marriage to a stranger? Some choice. But now a third option stood before her, impossible and terrifying, and right in a way that defied logic. "I can't," she whispered. Marcus's face went red. "What?" "I can't marry you." The words came easier the second time. "I'm sorry, Marcus, but I don't love you. I never did. And if what he's saying is true, if... Marcus laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. "Delilah, he's a vampire, a monster. He's probably manipulating you right now with some kind of mind control." "I am not," Valerius said, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. "I have no need for such crude tactics. She feels the bond between us because it is real, because her soul recognizes mine, because we are meant to be together, and no mortal ceremony will change that truth." "Get out of my way," Marcus said, moving to grab Delilah again. Valerius moved faster than humanly possible, placing himself between them with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and threatening. "Touch her again, and I will separate your hand from your wrist." The threat was delivered calmly, almost conversationally, but there was no doubt he meant every word. "Delilah, please." Her mother's voice called from the pews. She'd recovered from her faint and was clutching her husband's arm. "Please, don't do this. Don't go with him. You'll die." The curse was a promise," Valerius said, turning his attention to Delilah's mother with a gaze that made the older woman shrink back. "A promise that your daughter would return to me, and now she has. I will not lose her again." Delilah's father stood, his face pale but determined. "What are you offering my daughter? An eternity as a vampire? That's death of another kind." "I'm offering her the life she was meant to have," Valerius said. "I'm offering her immortality, power, protection, and a love that has waited 6 generations to be fulfilled. I'm offering her a choice her ancestor never got to make." He turned back to Delilah. "Come with me, Delilah Foster. Let me show you the truth of who you are and what we were meant to be. If after you remember, after you understand, you truly wish to return to this mortal existence, I will let you go. I will break the curse myself and give you your ordinary life. You'd do that?" Delilah asked, searching his face for deception and finding none. "I have waited 147 years for you," Valerius said softly. "I can wait longer if I must, but I will not trap you. The curse ensured your return. The choice to stay must be yours." It was insane. It was impossible. It went against everything rational and safe and normal. But standing there in her wedding dress, looking at this beautiful, dangerous vampire king who claimed she was the reincarnation of his lost love, Delilah felt more awake, more alive, more real than she had in her entire 22 years. "Okay," she said. "Okay," Marcus repeated incredulously. "Okay," Delilah confirmed, looking at Valerius. "Show me, help me remember, I need to understand." The smile that crossed Valerius's face was radiant and triumphant and possessive all at once. He extended his hand to her, palm up, waiting. An offer, not a demand. Delilah placed her hand in his, and the moment their skin touched, the world exploded into sensation. Light and memory and emotion crashed through her like a tidal wave. Flashes of another life, another time hiding a wounded vampire in her cellar, nursing him through the dangerous hours of daylight, falling in love across the vast divide of mortality and immortality, planning a future that was stolen by violence and sacrifice. She gasped, her knees buckling, and Valerius caught her effortlessly, holding her against his chest. His scent surrounded her, something dark and spiced and ancient, familiar in a way that made her want to cry. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've always got you. I remember," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Not everything, but I remember loving you. I remember dying for you." "Never again," Valerius swore, his arms tightening around her. "I will never let you die again." Marcus made a sound of disgust. "This is insane. You're all insane." "Fine. Keep her. She's clearly lost her mind." But Delilah barely heard him. She was lost in the memories flooding through her, in the feeling of safety and rightness that came from being in Valerius's arms. This was what had been missing her entire life, this connection, this certainty. "We need to leave," Valerius said, his tone shifting to something more urgent. "The commotion will have attracted attention, and there are those in my world who would not approve of this reunion." "What do you mean?" Delilah asked, pulling back slightly to look at his face. "The vampire council that once hunted me still exists, and they have long memories. When they learn that I've reclaimed you, that the curse has fulfilled its purpose, they will see you as a threat, a mortal who could become vampire royalty, who holds my heart and therefore my power." His expression hardened. "They will try to kill you to weaken me." "Then we fight them," Delilah said, surprising herself with the ferocity in her voice. But the memories were still coming, still filling in gaps. She'd been fierce in her past life too. A fighter, a protector. That strength hadn't died with her ancestor. It had been passed down, waiting to be awakened. Valerius's eyes blazed with approval and desire. "We will. But first we need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere I can complete your transformation and teach you what you need to know to survive in my world." "Transformation?" Delilah's mother cried out. "You're going to turn her into a vampire?" "With her consent," Valerius said firmly. "Always with her consent. That is the choice I'm offering. Mortality and death, or immortality and eternity with me." Delilah looked at her parents, at Marcus's furious face, at the wedding guests still frozen in shock and fear. She looked at the life she'd been about to commit to, safe, ordinary, empty. Then she looked at Valerius, at the promise of adventure and danger and a love powerful enough to bend fate itself. "Let's go," she said. Valerius swept her into his arms as if she weighed nothing, and Delilah gasped at the sudden movement. "Hold on," he instructed, and then he was moving. Faster than possible, carrying her down the aisle and out of the cathedral in a blur of motion that left her breathless and exhilarated. The world outside was twilight, the sun just setting, and Valerius moved through the streets with inhuman speed, buildings blurring past them. Delilah clung to him, her heart racing with fear and excitement in equal measure. This was real, this was happening. She'd just abandoned her wedding to run away with a vampire king who claimed she was his reincarnated love. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt free. They didn't stop until they reached the outskirts of the city, where a massive wrought iron gate stood before a private road leading into dense forest. Valerius slowed as they approached, and the gate swung open of its own accord, responding to his presence. He carried her up the winding drive until a structure emerged from the trees that made Delilah's breath catch. It was a castle, or something close to it, all dark stone and soaring towers and Gothic architecture that should have looked out of place in the modern world but somehow didn't. It looked eternal, existing outside of time, beautiful and forbidding all at once. "This is your home?" Delilah asked as Valerius finally set her down on the front steps. "One of them," he said. "I have residences in several countries, but this is the one I prefer, the one I've been preparing for your return." The massive doors opened and a woman emerged, another vampire, Delilah realized immediately, with the same pale skin and regal bearing. Her hair was white blonde and cut short, and her eyes were a striking silver color. "My lord," she said, bowing slightly, "I felt your approach. Is this?" "This is Delilah," Valerius said, his hand settling possessively on Delilah's lower back. "She has returned to me." The woman's eyes widened, and then a genuine smile crossed her face. "After all these years, my lord, I'm so pleased." She turned to Delilah. "My name is Seraphine. I serve as your betrothed's second in command and have waited a very long time to meet you." "Betrothed?" Delilah repeated, looking at Valerius. "We were to be married the night you died," Valerius said softly. "You agreed to become my queen, to rule the vampire world at my side. That engagement has never been dissolved, not in my heart. The weight of it settled over Delilah, not just a romance, but a political alliance, a destiny that went beyond two people to encompass an entire supernatural society." "I should warn you," Seraphine said, her expression turning serious. "The council has already heard of your emergence. Lord Mordecai sent a messenger demanding an audience." Valerius's jaw tightened. "Of course he did. How long do we have?" "He's demanded you appear before them in 3 nights' time, to explain why you've broken 6 generations of peace by activating the curse." "Peace," Valerius said with bitter amusement. "Is that what they call the prison they tried to build around me? Forbidding me from turning any new vampires, isolating me from the court, trying to ensure my bloodline died with me?"
"You're not allowed to turn people?"
Delilah asked. "The council restricted my rights after they discovered what I'd done to your family line," Valerius explained. "They saw the curse as proof of my instability, my dangerous attachment to mortals. They forbade me from creating new vampires without their approval, and they have denied every request I've made for 147 years. Understanding dawned. "So they won't let you turn me. They will try to prevent it, yes." Valerius's eyes burned with determination. "But I am still a king, regardless of their attempts to strip me of power, and you are still my betrothed, the woman I chose as my queen. They cannot stop me from claiming what is mine." "What happens if you defy them?" Delilah asked. Seraphine and Valerius exchanged glances. "War," Seraphine said bluntly. "The council has been looking for an excuse to remove Lord Valerius from power for over a century. This would give them the justification they need." "Then we don't turn me yet," Delilah said immediately. "We find another way. We can't start a war over this." Valerius's expression softened as he cupped her face in his hands. "You would sacrifice your immortality to prevent bloodshed?" "I would sacrifice anything to keep you safe," Delilah said, and the truth of it resonated through her bones. The memories were becoming clearer now. Stronger, she'd died for him once before. She would do it again without hesitation. "And that is exactly why you are meant to be my queen," Valerius murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. "But I will not let you make that sacrifice, not again. We will find a way through this that doesn't require you to give up the eternity we've been promised." "How?" Delilah asked. "By confronting the council directly," Valerius said. "By forcing them to acknowledge what they've known all along, that the curse was never about punishment. It was about love. And love, even vampire love, cannot be legislated or controlled." Seraphine cleared her throat. "If I may, my lord, there is a precedent that might work in our favor. The ancient laws state that a vampire king may turn his chosen mate without council approval if the bond between them is recognized as a true soul bond." "How do we prove a soul bond?" Delilah asked. "With the ritual of recognition," Seraphine said. "It's an ancient ceremony that hasn't been performed in centuries, but according to the old texts, when 2 souls are truly bonded across lifetimes, the ritual will make that connection visible to all witnesses. The council would have no grounds to deny you if the bond is proven genuine." Valerius's eyes lit with hope. "The ritual requires both participants to share blood willingly and survive the transformation of that exchange. If the bond is real, they emerge changed but alive, marked by each other's essence." "And if the bond isn't real?" Delilah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then one or both die," Valerius said grimly. "It's a test that cannot be faked or manipulated. Either the souls recognize each other at the deepest level, or they don't." Delilah took a breath, centering herself. The memories were still flooding through her, and with them came absolute certainty. "Then we do the ritual. We prove to the council that this is real." Valerius said seriously, "You could die. The ritual is dangerous even for those who are truly bonded. The transformation—" "I've already died for you once," Delilah interrupted. "I'm not afraid to risk it again. Besides, I can feel it, Valerius. This bond between us. It's real. I know it is." Valerius closed his eyes briefly, emotion flickering across his face, hope and fear and love so intense it made Delilah's chest ache. When he opened them again, his crimson gaze was determined. "Then we will do the ritual. Tomorrow night before the council meeting. We will prove to them that this bond is genuine and that nothing they do can break it." "Tomorrow?" Delilah's heart jumped. "That's so soon." "Every moment we wait is a moment they have to plot against us," Valerius said. "And I have already waited 147 years. I will not wait any longer than necessary." Seraphine bowed. "I will make the preparations and send word to the council that you will appear before them with proof of your bond. They will have to attend. The ritual is sacred. They cannot ignore it." As Seraphine disappeared back into the castle, Valerius guided Delilah inside. The interior was as impressive as the exterior, all vaulted ceilings and elegant furnishings that mixed medieval grandeur with modern comfort. But Delilah barely noticed the surroundings. She was too focused on the vampire king beside her. On the way, his hand remained protectively on her back. on the intensity of his gaze every time he looked at her. "You must be exhausted," Valerius said as they climbed a grand staircase. "The memory restoration can be draining, and you've had quite a shock today." "I left my own wedding," Delilah said, and then inexplicably she started laughing. It bubbled up from deep inside, part hysteria and part pure relief. "I actually left my own wedding to run away with a vampire. My mother is going to have a heart attack." Valerius's lips curved into a genuine smile, and the expression transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. "Your mother will forgive you when she realizes you're immortal and happy. Give her time. Will I be able to see them again? After the transformation?" "Of course," Valerius said. "Vampirism doesn't require you to abandon your mortal connections. You'll need to be careful, to ensure they're protected from others who might try to use them against you. But yes, you can maintain contact with your family if you wish." They reached a door at the end of a long hallway, and Valerius opened it to reveal a bedroom that took Delilah's breath away. It was enormous, decorated in rich colors, deep burgundies and golds and blacks, with a massive four-poster bed draped in silk. But what caught her attention was the portrait hanging above the fireplace. It was her, or rather it was her ancestor, the original Delilah Foster. But the resemblance was uncanny, the same dark hair, the same green eyes, the same features. She wore a simple dress from another era and was smiling at someone outside the frame with an expression of such love and joy it made Delilah's heart ache. "I painted that from memory," Valerius said softly, coming to stand beside her. "After she died, I wanted to preserve her exactly as I remembered her, exactly as she looked when she told me she loved me." Delilah's eyes burned with tears. "She's beautiful. You are beautiful," Valerius corrected. "Then and now. The same soul, the same spirit returned to me." Delilah turned to face him fully, studying his features. "What was it like, waiting all those years?" "Torture," Valerius said simply. "Every generation I watched from a distance as a daughter was born bearing your face. I watched them grow, hoping against hope that this time this would be the one. But I could always tell the soul wasn't complete. The reincarnation wasn't finished. They were echoes of you, shadows, but not you. And then they would die and the cycle would begin again." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "Until you. The moment I sensed your birth, I knew. Your soul sang to mine across the distance. I've been waiting for you to come of age, for the curse to bring you back to me fully. You've been watching me," Delilah realized. "All my life, from a distance," Valerius confirmed. "I couldn't risk approaching you too soon, couldn't risk your mother discovering me and taking measures to hide you. But yes, I've watched you grow. I've seen you become the woman you are, and every moment of waiting has been worth it to have you here now." It should have felt creepy being watched by an immortal vampire for 22 years. But somehow, with the memories still integrating, it felt more like protection. Like he'd been standing guard over her, ensuring she survived to this moment. "I'm scared," Delilah admitted. "About tomorrow, about the ritual. I would be concerned if you weren't," Valerius said. "Fear is healthy. It will keep you sharp. But know this, Delilah, I will do everything in my power to ensure you survive. I will not lose you again. What if the bond isn't strong enough? What if something goes wrong?" Valerius's eyes blazed. "The bond between us has survived death and time and a curse that spans 6 generations. It is strong enough to survive anything." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with fierce protectiveness. "Trust in that. Trust in me. Trust in what we are to each other." Delilah let herself sink into his embrace, feeling safer than she had in her entire life. "I do trust you. That's the strange part. I barely know you, but I trust you completely." "Your soul knows me," Valerius murmured against her hair. "And soon your mind will catch up. Rest now. Tomorrow will be challenging, and you need your strength." He led her to the bed, and Delilah realized she was still wearing her wedding dress. "I don't have any other clothes." Valerius moved to a wardrobe and pulled out a silk nightgown that looked both vintage and expensive. "I've been preparing for your arrival," he said. "You'll find everything you need here." Delilah took the nightgown, her fingers brushing his, and that electric connection sparked between them again. She changed quickly in the attached bathroom, marveling at the luxury of it, all marble and gold fixtures and a bathtub big enough for 3 people. When she emerged, Valerius was standing by the window, looking out at the moonlit grounds. "Will you stay?" Delilah asked, surprising herself with the question. But she didn't want to be alone tonight, not with everything that had happened, everything that was coming. Valerius turned, his expression carefully neutral. "Are you certain?" "I don't wish to presume." "Stay," Delilah said firmly. "Please, I need you here." The neutral mask cracked, revealing raw emotion beneath. Valerius moved to the bed, and Delilah climbed under the covers. He lay on top of them, maintaining that small distance. But when Delilah reached for his hand, he took it immediately. "Tell me about the ritual," she said. "What exactly happens?" "We will stand before the council in sacred space," Valerius explained. "You will offer me your blood, and I will offer you mine. When we drink from each other simultaneously, the bond will either activate or it won't. If it's real, if we are truly meant to be, the transformation will begin. Your mortality will start to shift and you'll take on aspects of my vampiric nature while I take on aspects of your humanity. We'll be changed by each other, bound together in a way that cannot be broken. And if it's not real, then the incompatibility will cause a violent rejection, usually fatal to one or both participants. He squeezed her hand. But I have no doubt about our bond, Delilah. None whatsoever. How can you be so sure? Valerius turned to face her fully, his crimson eyes serious. Because I can feel you in my very bones, because your presence soothes aches I've carried for over a century. Because when I look at you I see my past, my present, and my future all at once. This is not wishful thinking or desperate hope. This is certainty forged in loss and tempered by time. Delilah's throat tightened with emotion. I'm starting to remember more. Fragments of our life before. The way you used to read to me while I worked. The plans we made for after your transformation of me. The night she broke off, blushing, a slow smile crossed Valerius's face. The night we first made love. Yes. I remember that very clearly. We really were going to get married, Delilah whispered. We really were going to spend eternity together. We still will, Valerius promised. Tomorrow, we prove to the council what we've always known, and then nothing will keep us apart again. Delilah shifted closer, resting her head against his shoulder. He was cool to the touch, his vampire nature evident, but not uncomfortably so. It felt right lying here with him as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. Sleep, Valerius murmured. I'll watch over you. You don't sleep? Not often. And never when I have something precious to protect. Delilah smiled, her eyes already growing heavy. The emotional exhaustion of the day was catching up with her, and despite her fear about tomorrow, she felt safe here in Valerius's arms. The last thing she remembered before sleep claimed her was the gentle pressure of his lips against her forehead and the whispered words, "Welcome home, my love." She dreamed of her past life, memories flooding through her sleeping mind with vivid clarity. She saw herself hiding Valerius in her cellar, saw the moment she'd realized he was a vampire and decided she didn't care. She felt again the overwhelming love that had bloomed between them, powerful and inevitable. She relived their stolen moments together, their plans for the future, the night he'd asked her to be his queen, and she saw her death. Saw the vampire hunters breaking down her door, demanding to know where Valerius was hidden. Saw herself refusing to speak even as they threatened her. Felt the blade slide between her ribs, the cold spreading through her limbs. Heard Valerius's anguished cry as he emerged too late to save her, his supernatural speed not enough to prevent the tragedy. She saw his grief, his rage. The curse he'd spoken over her bloodline through tears and blood. Not a punishment but a promise that she would return to him, that their love would have another chance, that death would not be the end of their story. Delilah woke with tears on her cheeks and full understanding in her heart. She remembered everything now, every moment of her past life, every emotion, every promise, and she knew with absolute certainty that the ritual tomorrow would work because the bond between them wasn't just real, it was eternal. Valerius was still beside her, his crimson eyes watching her with concern. "You remember," he said. "It wasn't a question." "Everything," Delilah confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. "I remember loving you. I remember dying for you. I remember you holding my body and swearing you'd find a way to bring me back." "And I did," Valerius said fiercely. "It took 147 years, but I kept my promise." Delilah threw her arms around him and Valerius held her tight, his cool body solid and real against hers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry you had to wait so long. I'm sorry I died and left you alone." "You have nothing to apologize for," Valerius said roughly. "You saved my life. You died protecting me. The fault lies with me for not being strong enough to save you in return." "Stop," Delilah said, pulling back to look at him. "We both made choices, we both fought for our love, and now we have a second chance. Let's not waste it on guilt or regret." Valerius's expression softened and he leaned forward to press his forehead to hers. "Wise as well as beautiful, I chose well." "So did I," Delilah said with a small smile. Then she sobered. "We should prepare for tonight, the ritual. I want to be ready." They spent the day in Valerius's castle, and Delilah learned more about the vampire world she was about to join. Seraphine proved to be an excellent teacher, explaining the politics and hierarchies, the ancient laws and modern complications. The Vampire Council consisted of 7 members, the oldest and most powerful vampires in existence, and they governed all vampire kind with absolute authority, or they tried to. Valerius, as a king, held power independent of the council, but his influence had been severely curtailed after he'd cursed Delilah's bloodline. "They see him as unstable," Seraphine explained over lunch, though only Delilah ate, the vampires watching her with patient amusement. "A vampire who would curse an entire bloodline out of grief is a vampire who cannot be trusted with power. Never mind that his grief was justified, or that the curse was an act of love rather than vengeance. They used it as an excuse to limit his authority." "So they want to remove him entirely?" Delilah asked. "Some do," Seraphine confirmed. Lord Mordecai in particular has been pushing for Valerius to be stripped of his title and lands for decades. He sees vampire royalty as an outdated concept, believes the council alone should govern. If he can prove that Valerius is acting irrationally by turning you against council orders, he'll have the ammunition he needs. Then we make sure he doesn't get that ammunition, Delilah said firmly. We prove the bond is real and they'll have no grounds to object. Valerius, who had been listening silently, smiled.
You sound like a queen already.
I had a good teacher, Delilah said, the memory of her past life's education in vampire politics surfacing. Last time, you spent months preparing me for court life. Apparently some of that stuck even across lifetimes. As evening approached, the nervous energy in the castle grew. Seraphine helped Delilah dress in a gown appropriate for the ritual deep crimson silk that pooled at her feet, elegant and dramatic. Her dark hair was arranged in an intricate style that felt both modern and timeless, and when she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like royalty. She looked like a vampire queen. Valerius appeared in the doorway, and his breath caught audibly. He wore formal black clothing with silver accents, his white hair around his shoulders, looking every inch the powerful king he was. "You're breathtaking," he said. "So are you," Delilah replied, and meant it. He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "Are you ready?" "Yes," Delilah said without hesitation. "Let's go prove to them what we've always known." The council meeting was held in a location Delilah hadn't expected, deep beneath the city, in caverns that had been carved into an underground palace. Seraphine explained that vampires had built an entire civilization beneath the human world, a shadow society that existed parallel to mortal life. The council chambers were vast and ancient, with vaulted ceilings and walls carved with symbols that predated written language. 7 thrones sat in a semicircle, and upon them sat the council members. They were all pale and beautiful and terrifying in their own ways, men and women who had lived for thousands of years and accumulated power that radiated from them like heat. In the center throne sat Lord Mordecai, a vampire with silver-white hair and eyes like chips of ice. His expression as he looked at Valerius was cold with contempt. "Valerius Drăculești," Mordecai said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have been summoned to explain your flagrant violation of our laws. You were forbidden from creating new vampires, yet you appear before us with a mortal woman you claim as your betrothed and intend to transform. Explain yourself." Valerius stood tall and proud, Delilah at his side. "I have violated nothing. The law forbidding me from turning mortals was unjust and based on a fundamental misunderstanding of my actions. The curse I placed on the Foster bloodline was not an act of instability, it was an act of love. And the woman beside me is proof that love transcends even death." "Love," Mordecai said with disdain. "You cursed 6 generations of women to die young because of love? You'll forgive us if we find that claim dubious." "The curse ensured that the soul of my lost betrothed would return to me," Valerius said. "Each generation was a step in that return, preserving and refining her essence until she could be reborn fully formed. And now she has. Delilah Foster is the reincarnation of the woman I loved, the woman who died protecting me, the woman who was meant to be my queen." "A convenient story," Mordecai said. "But we have only your word that this mortal is who you claim." "Then we will prove it," Valerius said. "We invoke the ancient rite of the ritual of recognition. If our bond is genuine, if we are truly soul-bonded across lifetimes, the ritual will show it, and you will have no grounds to deny us." A murmur ran through the council. One of the other members, a woman with midnight black hair, leaned forward. "The ritual of recognition has not been performed in over a millennium. Are you certain you wish to risk it, Valerius? If the bond is not genuine, you both will likely die." "I have never been more certain of anything," Valerius said. Mordecai's eyes narrowed. "And you, mortal, are you willing to risk your life on this vampire's claim that you are his reincarnated love?" Delilah stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "I am, because I remember now. I remember loving him in my past life. I remember dying for him. I remember the promise he made to find me again. And I feel the bond between us now, stronger than anything I've ever experienced. This is real, and I'm not afraid to prove it." Another council member, an ancient-looking vampire with white eyes, spoke. "If you survive the ritual, you understand you'll be bound to each other in ways that cannot be undone. Your souls will be linked, your life forces connected. What affects one will affect the other." "I understand," Delilah said, "and I accept it willingly." Mordecai studied them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well, we will allow the ritual, but understand this: if you survive and the bond is proven genuine, you will be subject to all the responsibilities and restrictions that come with being vampire royalty. You will be a target for every vampire who opposes Valerius's rule. Your mortal family will be at risk. Your entire life will change irrevocably." "I understand," Delilah repeated. "I choose this anyway." "Then let us begin," Mordecai said, gesturing to the center of the chamber. A ritual circle had been carved into the floor, intricate symbols glowing with faint light. Valerius led Delilah into the circle and they faced each other, hands clasped. The 7 council members rose from their thrones and formed a larger circle around them, their combined power making the air thick and electric. Seraphine appeared with a ceremonial blade, ancient and beautiful. She handed it to Valerius, who tested the edge with his thumb. Blood welled immediately, dark and rich. The ritual requires a willing exchange, Valerius said quietly, his eyes locked on Delilah's. I will cut you, and you will cut me. We will drink from each other simultaneously. The moment our blood mixes, the bond will either activate or reject. Are you ready? Delilah's heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. I'm ready. Valerius brought the blade to her wrist, his touch gentle despite the sharpness of the knife. I love you, he said. Then and now and always. I love you too, Delilah whispered. The blade sliced across her wrist, a sharp pain that made her gasp. Blood flowed, and Valerius brought her wrist to his mouth. She took the blade with her other hand and mirrored his action, cutting across his wrist and bringing it to her lips. Their eyes met, and together they drank. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Power surged through Delilah like lightning, Valerius's vampiric essence flooding into her veins. At the same time she felt something leave her mortality, her humanity flowing into him. The exchange was violent and beautiful, painful and ecstatic all at once. The symbols in the ritual circle blazed with brilliant light, and Delilah felt the bond snap into place like a physical thing. A golden thread connecting her heart to Valerius's, visible and unbreakable. She could feel his emotions, his love, his relief, his fierce joy. And she knew he could feel hers. Her body began to change. Her senses sharpened, sounds and smells becoming almost overwhelming in their intensity. Her vision cleared, colors becoming more vivid. She could hear Valerius's heartbeat, irregular and slow but present, stronger than it had been. Her own heart slowed to match his rhythm, their pulses synchronizing. The pain was excruciating, every cell in her body rewriting itself, but Delilah didn't scream. She held Valerius's gaze, watched his transformation, his skin taking on a faint warmth, his eyes softening from pure crimson to crimson flecked with green. They were changing each other, balancing each other, becoming something new together. The light from the circle grew so bright Delilah had to close her eyes, and then it exploded outward in a wave of pure energy that knocked the council members back several steps. When it faded, Delilah and Valerius stood in the center, transformed. Delilah could feel the vampire nature thrumming through her veins, powerful and intoxicating, but she was still herself, still mortal in some fundamental ways, but changed, enhanced. And Valerius, she could see the subtle shifts in him, the faint color in his cheeks, the warmth in his skin. He'd taken aspects of her humanity, softening his vampiric nature without diminishing his power. The bond between them pulsed with golden light, visible to everyone in the chamber. Impossible, Mordecai breathed, staring at them. A perfect binding. I've never seen anything like it. The black-haired council member smiled. It's beautiful. A true soul bond, proven beyond any doubt. They are bound, the white-eyed vampire confirmed. Connected in ways that cannot be severed. Their souls are one. Valerius pulled Delilah close, and she could feel his relief and triumph through the bond. They'd done it. They'd proven their connection beyond any doubt. Mordecai recovered his composure, though his expression remained stunned. Very well. The bond is proven genuine. You have our permission to complete the transformation, Valerius. Though I note that it appears to have already begun. The ritual initiates the change, Valerius explained, his voice rough with emotion. But yes, she will need to complete the full transformation over the next several days. With the council's blessing, I will take her home and see her through it. You have our blessing, the black-haired vampire said, and our congratulations. A soul bond of this magnitude is a rare and precious thing. Treasure it. I intend to, Valerius said, his arms tightening around Delilah. Mordecai stood, his expression still cold but resigned. This council recognizes Delilah Foster as the bonded mate of King Valerius Drăculești and acknowledges her claim to the title of Vampire Queen. All restrictions previously placed on Valerius regarding the creation of new vampires are hereby lifted, as he has proven the justification for his actions. He paused. However, we will be watching. The vampire world is dangerous, and your bond makes you both targets. Do not give us reason to regret this decision. We won't, Delilah said, finding her voice. It sounded different now, stronger, with an edge of supernatural power. I understand the responsibility I'm taking on, and I'm ready for it. The council dismissed them, and Valerius swept Delilah out of the chamber, Seraphine following close behind. The moment they were in the carriage heading back to the castle, Delilah sagged against Valerius, exhaustion crashing over her. You did beautifully, Valerius murmured, pressing kisses to her hair. So brave, so strong, I'm so proud of you. I can feel you, Delilah said wonderingly. Your emotions, your presence. It's like you're inside my head. That's the bond, Valerius explained. We're connected now on every level. You'll always be able to sense me, and I you. We can communicate across distances, share strength when needed, even share memories if we choose. It's incredible, Delilah said. Then she winced as another wave of transformation pain rippled through her. And excruciating. The worst will pass in a few hours, Valerius promised. Your body is adapting to the vampire nature, integrating it with your humanity. It will hurt, but I'll be with you through every moment. They reached the castle, and Valerius carried Delilah straight to their bedroom. Seraphine brought cool cloths and a strange tea that she promised would help with the pain. Delilah drank it gratefully, then curled against Valerius as the transformation continued its work. It was like dying and being reborn at the same time. Her old self was being stripped away, rebuilt, made into something new. She could feel her strength increasing, her senses sharpening even further. The need for blood began to gnaw at her stomach, an unfamiliar hunger that Valerius quickly satisfied with blood he'd had prepared, human blood from willing donors, he assured her, ethically sourced. Drinking it felt wrong and right simultaneously, her human morals warring with her new vampire instincts. But Valerius held her through it, whispering reassurances, showing her through the bond that it was natural, that she didn't have to fear this part of herself. 3 days passed in a blur of transformation and adjustment. Delilah learned to control her new strength, to temper her enhanced senses so they didn't overwhelm her. She practiced moving with vampire speed and grace, though she retained more of her human limitations than a full vampire would have. The bond had created something unique. She was neither fully vampire nor fully human, but something in between. A hybrid, balanced by Valerius's complementary transformation. On the 4th day, Delilah woke feeling clear-headed and strong. The transformation was complete. She rose from the bed where Valerius still lay. He'd started sleeping again, another effect of their bond, and moved to the mirror. The woman looking back at her was familiar but changed. Her skin was paler but still held warmth and color. Her eyes were greener but flecked with crimson. Her features seemed sharper, more defined, more beautiful in a way that was distinctly supernatural. She looked like a vampire queen. Perfect, Valerius's voice came from behind her, and she turned to find him watching her with open admiration. You're absolutely perfect. Delilah smiled, feeling the bond between them pulse with affection. How do you feel? You look different too. I feel more alive than I have in 147 years, Valerius said, crossing to her. The bond didn't just give me aspects of your humanity, it gave me hope, purpose, a future I'd stopped believing in. He took her hands, and Delilah was struck again by how right this felt. How inevitable. What happens now? Now, Valerius said, we begin the life we were always meant to have. I teach you everything you need to know about being a vampire queen. We strengthen our position in the court. We protect each other and the love we've fought so hard to reclaim. He paused. And first, we deal with your mortal family. They deserve to know you're safe. Delilah's heart clenched. She'd been so focused on the transformation that she hadn't thought about her parents, about Marcus, about the wedding she'd abandoned. They must be so worried. Then we'll ease their worries, Valerius said gently. We'll visit them together, show them you're well, explain what's happened. Give them the choice to remain in your life or not. They made the journey to Delilah's childhood home that evening. Her parents' house looked exactly as it always had, warm and welcoming, and Delilah felt a pang of nostalgia for the simple mortal life she'd left behind. Her mother answered the door, and her eyes went wide when she saw Delilah. Oh my God, Delilah? We thought we didn't know if you were alive, or... She pulled Delilah into a crushing hug, and Delilah carefully controlled her new strength so she wouldn't hurt her mother. I'm alive, Mom. I'm okay. Better than okay. Her father appeared, looking older and more tired than Delilah remembered. His eyes went to Valerius with obvious suspicion and fear. Is he the reason you're here? Did he force you to come? No, Delilah said firmly. I came because I wanted you to know I'm safe and happy. I wanted to explain. They sat in the living room, and Delilah told them everything, the memories, the curse, the ritual, the transformation. Her mother cried, her father looked stunned. But neither of them rejected her, and for that Delilah was grateful. So you're a vampire now? Her mother asked, wiping her eyes. Sort of, Delilah said. It's complicated. I'm something new, part vampire, part human. The bond with Valerius created something unique. And you're happy? Her father asked, his voice gruff. This is really what you want? Delilah looked at Valerius, at the man who had waited 147 years for her, who had cursed her entire bloodline out of love, who had proven their bond before an ancient council. She felt the golden thread connecting them, felt his love and devotion and unwavering commitment. Yes, she said, this is what I want. He's what I want. I know it seems crazy, but I love him. I loved him in my past life, and I love him now. This is my future, and I'm choosing it willingly. Her mother reached out and took her hand. Then we support you. It's going to take some getting used to, and I don't know if I'll ever fully understand, but you're our daughter, we love you, and if this makes you happy, then we'll find a way to accept it. What about the curse? Her father asked. Is it really broken? Completely, Valerius spoke for the first time since they'd entered the house. The curse fulfilled its purpose, bringing Delilah back to me. There will be no more early deaths in your family line. That cycle has ended." Delilah's parents exchanged glances, relief evident on both their faces. "Thank God," her mother whispered. They talked for hours, working through the shock and fear and confusion. Delilah promised to visit regularly, to maintain contact, to let them be part of her new life as much as possible. Valerius assured them that he would protect their daughter with his life, that he had resources to ensure their safety as well if anyone tried to use them against Delilah. When they finally left, Delilah felt lighter. Her parents hadn't rejected her. They were scared and confused, but they still loved her. That was more than she'd hoped for. "What about Marcus?" Delilah asked as they drove back to the castle. "Should I talk to him too?" Valerius's expression darkened. "Only if you wish to. He has no claim on you." "I should probably apologize for leaving him at the altar," Delilah said, "even if the marriage would have been wrong." They tracked Marcus down to his apartment, and he answered the door looking haggard and angry. "You've got some nerve showing up here," he said when he saw Delilah. "I know. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm sorry for embarrassing you and leaving you like that. But I couldn't go through with the wedding. It wouldn't have been fair to either of us." Marcus's eyes went to Valerius, hatred clear in his expression. "So you chose him, the monster who cursed your family." "He's not a monster," Delilah said firmly. "And yes, I chose him. I love him, Marcus. I never loved you. I was going to marry you out of desperation, not desire. You deserve someone who actually wants to be with you." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Right. Well, good luck with your vampire king. I hope you don't regret it when he shows you what monsters really are." Delilah felt Valerius tense beside her, but she put a hand on his arm. "We're done here. Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you find happiness." They left before Marcus could respond, and Delilah felt another weight lift from her shoulders. That chapter of her life was closed. She'd apologized, explained, and now she could move forward without guilt. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of adjustment and discovery. Valerius taught Delilah everything about vampire society, the complex politics, the ancient hierarchies, the delicate balance of power. She met other vampires, made allies, and learned to navigate the dangerous world she'd married into. But she also discovered joy. The bond between her and Valerius grew stronger every day, their connection deepening as they learned each other all over again. They shared memories. He showed her moments from his long life, and she showed him moments from her mortal years. They trained together, fought together, loved together. Delilah proved herself to be a natural leader, her human empathy combined with her vampire strength making her uniquely suited to bridge the gap between mortal and immortal worlds. Under her influence, Valerius began implementing reforms in vampire society, creating programs to ensure ethical blood sourcing and better relations with the human world. The council watched with approval, particularly the black-haired vampire who introduced herself as Nicolette. She became a mentor to Delilah, teaching her the subtleties of vampire court politics and helping her navigate the treacherous waters of immortal society. Mordecai remained hostile, but even he couldn't deny that Delilah and Valerius were good for vampire kind. Their bond had created stability. Their reforms were improving relations with mortals, and their love story had become legend among vampires, proof that even immortals could find true soulmates. 6 months after the ritual, Valerius proposed properly. He took Delilah to a private garden beneath the castle, a hidden sanctuary filled with night-blooming flowers, and got down on one knee with a ring that had belonged to the original Delilah, a ruby set in silver that had survived across the generations. "I asked you once before to be my queen," he said, his crimson eyes bright with emotion, "and you said yes. But I want to ask again, now that you understand fully what that means, now that you've seen the darkness and danger and complexity of my world. Delilah Foster, will you marry me? Will you rule beside me for eternity? Will you be my wife, my partner, my everything?" Delilah's eyes filled with tears, happy tears that she could still cry despite her vampire nature. "Yes," she said, 1,000 times yes, in this life, in the next, and every life after. I'm yours, Valerius, always." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and the bond between them flared with golden light, their joy and love resonating through the connection. He pulled her into his arms, and they kissed beneath the moonlight, surrounded by flowers and starlight and the promise of forever. The wedding was held in the vampire court 3 months later, a grand affair that brought together vampires from all over the world. It was nothing like the human ceremony Delilah had almost gone through with Marcus. This was elegant and ancient, steeped in traditions that predated recorded history. Delilah wore a gown of black silk embroidered with silver thread, and Valerius wore formal attire that marked him as vampire royalty. The ceremony was conducted by Nicolette, who spoke the ancient words binding them together in vampire law. When they exchanged vows, the bond between them blazed so brightly that everyone in attendance could see it, a golden thread connecting their hearts, visible proof of their soul connection. "I vow to love you across lifetimes," Valerius said, his voice strong and clear. to protect you with everything I am, to honor you as my queen and my equal, to choose you in every moment of our eternal existence. I vow to stand beside you always, Delilah responded, to share your burdens and your joys, to rule with wisdom and compassion, to love you with everything I am in this life and beyond. You are my past, my present, and my future, my soulmate across eternity. When they kissed, sealing their vows, the golden light of their bond exploded outward, washing over the assembled vampires like a blessing. It was said later that every vampire who witnessed their wedding felt the power of their love, felt hope renewed in their ancient hearts. The celebration lasted 3 nights, and Delilah met vampires from every corner of the globe, all coming to pay tribute to their king and his new queen. She danced with Valerius under stars and moonlight, surrounded by music and magic and the joy of a love that had conquered death itself. On the 4th night, when the guests had finally departed and they were alone in their chambers, Valerius pulled Delilah close. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "For what?" Delilah asked, content in his arms. "For coming back to me, for choosing me, for giving me the eternity I thought I'd lost forever." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes soft with emotion. "I love you, Delilah, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You are my miracle, and you are mine," Delilah said, cupping his face in her hands. "I was sleepwalking through life before you, going through the motions, waiting for something I didn't even know I was missing. But you woke me up. You showed me what it means to really live, really love, really be alive." She smiled. "Even if being alive now technically means being partially undead." Valerius laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Semantics. They made love that night with the bond singing between them, their connection deeper and more profound than anything physical. Delilah could feel Valerius's pleasure as if it were her own, could sense his love and devotion surrounding her like a tangible thing. And she knew he felt the same from her, her joy, her passion, her absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. Afterward, lying tangled together in silk sheets, Delilah traced the lines of Valerius's face. "Do you think she knows, the original Delilah? Do you think her soul is at peace now that we're together?" "I think she is you," Valerius said softly. "Not a separate entity but a part of your whole. Her memories, her love, her essence, it's all integrated into who you are now. And yes, I think she's at peace. We both are." Delilah smiled, feeling the truth of his words resonate through her. She was the original Delilah and her own person, all at once, past and present merged into something new and beautiful. The curse had been broken, the cycle completed, the promise fulfilled. In the months that followed, Delilah truly grew into her role as vampire queen. She established programs to help newly turned vampires adjust to their immortality, created councils to mediate disputes between vampires and mortals, and worked tirelessly to improve the relationship between the two worlds. Her unique position as a hybrid gave her insights that pure vampires lacked, and her compassion made her beloved among both mortals and immortals. Valerius ruled beside her with pride and love, his centuries of experience balanced by her fresh perspective. Together, they were transforming vampire society, bringing it out of the shadows and into a new era of cooperation and understanding. The council that had once viewed Valerius with suspicion now saw him as one of the greatest vampire kings in history, largely due to Delilah's influence. Even Mordecai grudgingly admitted that their binding had been beneficial for vampire kind. A year after their wedding, Delilah stood with Valerius on the balcony of their castle, looking out over the grounds. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light over everything. "Do you ever regret it?" Valerius asked quietly. "Giving up your mortal life, the chance to grow old, have children, live a normal existence?" Delilah turned to face him, her heart full of certainty. "Never. Not for a single moment. This is the life I was meant to have. You are the person I was meant to be with. Everything that happened, the curse, the waiting, even the pain, it was all worth it to be here now, with you." Valerius pulled her close, and Delilah felt the bond between them pulse with golden light. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you too." Delilah replied, "For eternity." And it was true, they had eternity now, an endless stretch of nights and days to explore, to love, to grow together. The curse that had once threatened to destroy them had instead brought them together, stronger and more united than ever. They had faced death and time and the opposition of an ancient council, and they had won. Their love story would be told for generations, the vampire king who cursed a bloodline to reclaim his lost love, and the mortal woman who remembered across lifetimes to find her way back to him. It would become legend, proof that true love could survive anything, even death itself. But for Delilah and Valerius, it wasn't a legend or a story. It was simply their life, beautiful and complex and filled with the kind of love that poets wrote about and dreamers yearned for. They had found each other across impossible odds, had proven their bond before the highest vampire court, and had built a future together that honored both their mortal and immortal natures. Some nights, Delilah would still visit her parents, maintaining that connection to her human roots. They had adjusted to her new nature better than she'd hoped, and while they worried about her, They also saw how happy she was. Her mother had even become friends with Seraphine, the two of them bonding over their shared desire to protect Delilah. Other nights, Delilah would sit with Valerius in his library, reading together in comfortable silence, or she would attend vampire court functions and navigate the complex politics with grace and wisdom. She learned to use her hybrid abilities, the strength and speed of a vampire combined with the emotional intelligence and adaptability of a human, to bridge divides and create understanding. And every night, without fail, she would fall asleep in Valerius's arms, the bond between them a constant source of comfort and joy. She could feel his presence always, a warm glow in her chest that told her she was loved, protected, and cherished. 5 years after their wedding, the Vampire Council approached them with a proposal. They wanted Valerius and Delilah to represent vampire kind in formal negotiations with mortal governments, to help create official treaties and agreements that would allow both species to coexist openly. It was a massive undertaking, one that would require years of work and diplomacy. But it was also exactly the kind of challenge that excited both of them, a chance to truly change the world, to create a future where mortals and immortals could live together in harmony. "What do you think?" Valerius asked after the council had left. "It would be dangerous. Exposing ourselves fully to the mortal world could backfire badly." "It could," Delilah agreed. "But it could also be incredible. Imagine a world where vampires don't have to hide, where mortals and immortals work together instead of fearing each other. We could actually make that happen." Valerius smiled, that devastating expression that still made Delilah's heart skip. "Then we'll make it happen, together." And they did. Over the next decade, they worked tirelessly to build bridges between the mortal and vampire worlds. There were setbacks and challenges, moments of fear and danger when extremists on both sides tried to derail the peace process. But Delilah and Valerius faced every challenge together, their bond making them stronger than any opposition. Slowly, painstakingly, they built a new world order. Treaties were signed, laws were passed, vampire kind came out of the shadows, and while the transition wasn't always smooth, it was successful. Mortals learned that vampires weren't the monsters of legend, and vampires learned that mortals could be allies rather than just food sources. Through it all, Delilah and Valerius's love remained constant. They celebrated victories together and supported each other through defeats. They grew and changed and adapted, their bond deepening with every passing year. On their 50th wedding anniversary, Valerius took Delilah back to the cathedral where he'd first claimed her. It had been converted into a museum, a monument to the day that had changed vampire history. The story of the vampire king who halted a cursed marriage with 4 words, "She belongs with me," had become famous worldwide, a symbol of true love's power. They stood in the aisle where Valerius had first appeared, where Delilah had been about to marry the wrong man out of desperation and fear. "Do you remember?" Valerius asked, his arm around her waist. "Every moment," Delilah said. "I remember being terrified and confused. I remember feeling this pull toward you that I couldn't explain. I remember thinking I must be insane to leave with you, but knowing I'd regret it forever if I didn't." "Best decision you ever made," Valerius teased gently. "Best decision we ever made," Delilah corrected. "You took a huge risk coming here, claiming me in front of all those people. What if I'd said no?" "You couldn't have," Valerius said seriously. "Not with the bond between us. Your soul would never have let you walk away from mine. Just as mine couldn't have survived another day without claiming you." Delilah leaned into him, feeling the golden thread of their bond pulse with familiar warmth. 50 years together, and it still felt as fresh and vital as the first day. That's what a true soul bond meant, love that didn't fade or diminish with time, but only grew stronger. "Thank you," she said softly, "for waiting for me, for cursing my bloodline, for showing up at that cathedral and changing my entire life." "Thank you," Valerius responded, "for being brave enough to remember, for choosing to take the risk, for becoming my queen and my partner and my everything." They kissed there in the cathedral, in the exact spot where their new life together had begun, and the bond between them blazed with golden light. After 50 years, after countless challenges and triumphs, after building a new world together, they were still as deeply in love as they'd been in that first moment, and they would be for all the centuries to come, because some loves are strong enough to survive death, to span lifetimes, to change the world. And the love between Delilah Foster and Valerius Drăculești was exactly that kind of love, eternal, unbreakable, and absolutely perfect. They left the cathedral hand in hand, walking out into a world they'd helped create, surrounded by the love and respect of both mortals and immortals. Their story would be told for generations, inspiring others to believe in the power of true love, in the possibility of second chances, in the magic that exists when 2 souls find each other across impossible odds. But for them, it wasn't about legend or legacy. It was simply about love, the kind of love that had brought them together across 147 years of separation, the kind of love that had survived a curse and a ritual and the opposition of ancient powers, the kind of love that would carry them through eternity, growing stronger with every passing moment. The curse that had once threatened to destroy the Foster bloodline had instead become the greatest blessing of Delilah's life. It had brought her to Valerius, had shown her a love she never could have imagined in her mortal existence, had given her a purpose and a future beyond anything she'd dreamed possible. And as they walked into the sunset together, or rather the moonrise, being creatures of the night, Delilah knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, with the man who had loved her across lifetimes, with the vampire king who had claimed her at the altar with 4 simple words that had changed everything. She belonged with him, and he belonged with her forever.